Yeah.
4 or 5 engineers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's to me a record is a record. It's like it's an album. It's something, even if it's not a concept album. All the songs have to have a red line going through it.
Right.
You know, they all have to fit together. They all have to be like that band.
Exactly.
You know, nowadays I turn on the radio and I don't know which band is playing.
Yeah.
If I turn
Right.
on something like 105.9, a classic rock,
yeah.
it
Yeah.
takes one bar and I know what the band is.
Right.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
and I think we should get back to that.
Yeah.
And I'm
absolutely.
still working on that.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
Music that's memorable, that lasts.
yeah, and a sound.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, you hear Zeppelin, you hear like 2 notes on the
It's
guitar,
like,
and you
boom,
know,
yeah.
that's
Right.
it.
Yeah.
You know?
Totally. And so when you got into this thing with Dokken and everything, so you got to basically witness firsthand the Sunset Strip exploding. 'Cause,
Yeah.
I mean, when you got there in '79, it was right at the very beginning of that.
Right.
And then, so I mean, tell us
What was it like
was
to be
it-
the most popular German in
Well,
Hollywood?
I wasn't.
No?
I wasn't. No, not in the beginning. Nobody knew me.
Right.
You know, in the beginning, when I came back in '84. Went back and forth, did some records there at Balls to the Wall over there, and Restless and Wild, and you know, and then did the stuff over here, and then came back in '84 to do X.
Right.
And I was staying at Don's house together with Alan Niven, who became the manager of Guns N' Roses
Right.
and
Yeah.
Great White.
Yeah.
You know,
Incredible
Bobby
manager.
Blotzer.
Oh,
You
really?
know,
Yeah.
that was that whole South Bay thing. It was everybody knew each other.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I did a demo with Mick Mars in when he was in Vendetta. That was his band
Wow.
before
Really?
Motley Crue. Yeah.
Nice.
And
I'd
Udo
love to
actually
hear
sang
that.
on it.
Who
Yeah,
did?
Udo.
Oh,
Sang
wow.
backgrounds. I actually,
Oh, I'd
when
love
they
to
were
hear that.
playing here, I gave him a reel-to-reel of that demo,
Yeah.
and he freaked out.
Wow,
So
I
here,
bet.
dude, that's your demo, and he kind of freaked out.
That's
you know.
back when he
Oh,
was
I
still
bet.
Bob Deal before Mick Mars, right?
No, he was.
Or was he already calling himself that?
I think he was Mick Moss already.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was Mick Moss already.
Well,
And-
you got to work on Too Fast for Love.
Yeah, but that was the whole reason.
Yeah.
I did the demo with Mick, and then I went back to Germany, came back here for vacation, and I run into him. He goes, "Dude, you got to help me with my new band. It's called Motley Crue."
Uh-huh.
And I go,
Awesome.
"Okay."
Yeah.
You know, I go, "What do you want me to do?" "Well, I want you to mix the whole album." And we had 4 days on a Soundcraft console with an analog tape machine in Andy Wallace's studio, and I didn't even know till way later that was his studio, and we mixed the whole record.
Wow.
Yeah.
And they only made, I think, 1,000 of it.
And what did you think of Motley Crue? When you
Oh, I
first
loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I walked in the room, meeting the guys, and there's Tommy on the floor lighting his farts on fire. That's how I met them, you know. And Mick goes, "This is my new band."
That's a
and,
first impression.
And to me, the whole thing with the puffed up hair,
Yeah.
and to me that was like awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, there's a style, you know, and those guys, I mean, at the time, those guys were living in one room
Yeah.
together. And Mick's bed was behind his Marshall stacks. That was his room.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And then it exploded overnight.
Yeah.
You know? It was a big deal. I liked the band. I thought it was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
then it
was.
would become that big, that fast.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
Wow.
You know, you never know, really.
Yeah.
I suppose was that the first real big one for you, the one that really blew up the most?
It pretty much was.
Yeah.
You know, but the
then
record
it
that I did
continued,
was
right?
only like I said, 1,000 copies, and then Roy
Oh,
Thomas
yeah?
Baker remixed it for Elektra.
Right.
There's a character.
Huh? Yeah.
Yeah. Roy
Yeah.
Thomas Baker.
And then that was released, and that was pushed, you know, really hard.
Yeah.
And I mean, Motley Crue, they lived that lifestyle.
It was
Yeah.
great
And-
music,
and
and
it
it
was
was
honest.
real.
Yeah, there was no
right.
pretense
Honest
with
and
that.
real. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're right.
So, yeah, that was actually the first big band.
Yeah.
And then Dokken became big on Under Lock and Key.
Yeah.
And the second album was good, where I worked with Roy Thomas Baker on that
Yeah.
record.
What's it like working with Roy Thomas?
Oh,
Baker?
it's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was one of my big idols,
Yeah.
you know. Journey and Queen and
Uh-huh.
all that. And I walked into the room and go, So, about those Queen backing vocals. You know?
Yeah.
We sat down and he told me.
You the secret?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then I married his secretary.
You did?
Oh, wow.
For a while. And anyway, yeah, it was amazing.
So did
Working
you go
with
to...
him is just like, it taught me a lot.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and later on when we did Under Lock and Key, I go, so I'm looking for a big drum room. He goes, rent the Forum.
Yeah.
That's a big drum room.
Yeah, it's a pretty big
You
drum
know?
Yeah.
So.
And now, Deep Thoughts with Tommy Lee.
What color panties are you wearing?
Want to be a member of the Decibel Geek Army?
You slimy scumbag, get on your face and give me 25.
Join us on our fan page at facebook.com/decibelgeek.
Hi, this is Lemmy's liver. Man, am I exhausted. You're listening to the Decibel Geek Podcast.
And then later on with Skid Row's first album, he had just done a record in Wisconsin, and at Lake Geneva, Royal Recorders.
Right. Yeah, we were talking about that a little bit.
Yeah, and then there were right next to the studio was a big convention center, massively big. I mean, the room had 120 cars in it the night before we started recording.
Wow.
So it was massive. We had to have a roadie sleep right next to the drums so nothing gets stolen. And
Wow.
you know. But it was the old Playboy Resort. So Skid Row, 18, 19-year-old kids, you know, me being fairly young, and we just went crazy up there.
Yeah,
It
so
was amazing.
It was recorded in Wisconsin?
Yeah.
Really? I had no idea.
Yeah, and the
I would have thought
studio's
it'd been
no
New
more.
Jersey. Really?
It was the old Playboy Resort just right next to Lake Geneva.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Big
I love
hotel with like a bunch of golf courses,
Yeah.
and they have their own little landing strip, and Hugh Hefner had a room in the hotel, and
Wow.
with view on the pool, and
So
that's pretty amazing.
So how hard
Fantastic.
was it to corral Sebastian for that album? Was he
Not at all.
No?
Yeah.
No,
He
no.
always struck
He-
me as kind of a wild child during
Well,
that
he
era.
is.
Yeah.
He is,
Yeah.
but he took his work really seriously. You know, and I don't care if somebody drinks a beer.
Yeah.
You know, heavy drugs in the studio don't make sense because it's a waste of time. But
Counterproductive.
Yeah.
you know, he didn't take heavy drugs at the time.
Right.
I don't
See,
know
but
if he
again-
ever did, but
Again, it comes back, I think, to it being real. You know, when
Yeah.
you get Sebastian Bach and he's a rock and roller, you know he's a rock and roller because
Yeah.
that's what he really is. You know,
Yeah.
he ain't putting on an act. He wasn't
No,
put
I know.
together.
no,
in a
he
band, you
lived
know?
that lifestyle,
Yeah.
That's why I
absolutely.
asked.
And
That's
also,
what makes
you know,
music so good.
he went into the studio. He didn't drink a beer or anything before.
Yeah.
He did his job, and then he had a
Well,
beer afterwards.
his vocals, especially on that album, just I mean, the hot.
Oh, the first one?
Yeah, I mean, even with all the people you've worked with, you had to have been a bit in awe with some of the vocals he could hit on that record.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Let me tell you this: it was a lot of work.
it was.
And that's where I'm going to leave it.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
You know?
A few takes.
Well, you got to figure
Yeah.
it's their first album.
Yeah.
You know, so Slave to the Grind. You know, I love that album.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And Sebastian is an awesome singer. He's
Yeah,
an
he is.
awesome entertainer.
yeah,
There was a little bit of a pitch problem here and there.
Right.
You know, but we did it.
yeah.
You know, we
Yeah.
worked on it really hard, and he worked on it really hard. And he would not leave the room till we actually had everything on tape.
Yeah,
You know,
Fantastic.
and take it really, really seriously.
yeah,
So did everybody in the band.
right.
Yeah.
Everybody was like, you know, and at the time the record was already written when Sebastian came in,
Right.
and he just sang it, so to speak,
Right.
you know. And the second record, he co-wrote some of the songs, some of the lyrics and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But the first one was already written. But we did it in 2 months.
Wow. Well, but Slave to the Grind, you know, Aaron and I are both. I, mean,
I put it up there with
we've-
one of the greatest rock
yeah,
albums of all time.
I do too.
Yeah.
We're
Of all
both
time.
we're both massive fans of that album.
There's
And
not a bad song. You know, there's so many albums where you say, there's a couple good songs here and there on it. There's not a bad song on Slave to the Grind. Not
But see,
one.
that's what that's what happens now with iTunes, where you can just
You
pick
get
the
one
song
song.
that you
Right.
want.
Yeah,
And, you know, there you had to have 10 great songs.
Yeah.
And you had one weird one, you know, that was like the 6-7 minute song, and you know, that way you go, okay, we don't care if that goes on the radio. That's what we want to play. But you had to have great songs. You had to be great to even make it into the studio.
Right.
A studio day was $2,500 at that time.
Yeah.
Wow.
You know, and for you to somebody give you that money to go into the studio, you had to be good.
Yeah.
You know, and you had to have something. And nowadays it's just like anybody with a $50 M box can do a record, calls themselves a producer, you know. But the whole thing with the band being in one room and living through the record and working on the record together, even if they don't record everything at the same time.
Right.
You know, but they're there.
Yeah.
You know, when we do the drums, everybody's playing.
Yeah.
You know, so that is gone lost a little bit.
Yeah.
You know,
sure.
with affordable recording technique, and it's gone lost a little bit.
You know, it's like we talked about with Toby Wright. Just because you can record music at home in your bedroom doesn't mean you should.
Or doesn't mean
If
people are
you're
ready for it to be
serious.
released.
Well,
You know,
and
if you're
it's
serious.
not the gear.
Right.
It's the ear.
Yeah.
You know, you have to have an education in it.
Right.
You know, and it's and like reading a book is not an education.
Right.
Yeah.
It's gives you, puts you in the right direction, but experience is valuable.
Yeah.
Very, very
Take
valuable.
it from a man who's got a lifetime of experience, you know,
Yeah.
and look at the resume. So many great albums. We
Yeah.
talked about so many already.
Yeah, and well, before we get off of Slave to the Grind, I got to ask: was it an intentional homage to the Ramones on Riot Act, or was
Yeah.
I didn't know if it was an
Yeah.
unconscious
Yeah, totally.
thing.
That's Rachel.
Okay. Yeah.
Rachel's a total punker.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
loves punk, and yes, absolutely.
Okay, because I listened to that, I'm like, it's totally Teenage
Well, yeah,
Lobotomy,
that's
or,
like that EP, the Besides Themselves, where what's the story?
Yeah,
they
mix
each,
that,
they
I
each,
think, yeah.
they each got to pick
Yeah.
the song
Right.
they wanted to
Yeah, you
cover.
worked on that one too, right? Yeah.
You know which one Rachel picked. You know,
Yeah.
it's the punk cover.
Yeah,
for sure.
and they play that live, and he
Yeah.
sings it. You know,
It's
so
awesome.
yeah, no, he's a punker,
Yeah,
but he's also an amazing songwriter.
yeah.
You know, it blows my mind what that guy can come up with, and Snake as well.
Yeah.
You know, and the team together, they're those records. That's
Right.
them. You know, so
Amazing
they're
song.
amazing. And now we did Revolutions Per Minute.
Yeah.
And that
I like
has some
that.
punk stuff on it. You
Yeah.
know?
Was that the one where they do the rocked out cover of I Remember You? Or was that the first one?
I'm not sure.
I think it's
I don't
on
know.
Thick Skin.
Or was it
That was Thick Skin.
Yeah,
That-
RPM
that's
is the
not-
one with the country song, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, the cowpunk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
weird to hear Skid Row doing a country type song.
Yeah. Well,
It's
there's
cool,
3 or
though.
4
Yeah.
versions of that song.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. That's right.
So-
See, I still buy Skid Row albums, and it's okay.
Good, thank you.
It's okay.
Well, yeah.
It's all
And you
good.
still have a relationship with those guys, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
so-
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I mean, from that first record on, from the first day on, we became brothers.
yeah.
You know, especially Rachel and I. And yes, to the day, we still have a great relationship. And
On that first album, was there any John Bon Jovi sightings around the studio? Because I know he
yeah,
actually,
he
was a
came
heavily
by because
invested
he
in that
was
band.
involved.
Yeah.
You know, and John took them on tour later on,
Right.
and that was a big, big help in them becoming big.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
The music was amazing. The
Mhm.
performance was amazing. It just had to be brought to
Yeah.
the people.
Yeah.
He gave him that
You know?
push.
And at that time, you know, you can't get brought to too many more
No.
people than standing in front of Bon Jovi.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
They
did
were
that.
massive.
They would
Yeah.
open up for Bon Jovi in front of like 20,000 people, and when their opening up slot was gone, they would go into a club in that same town and play
Yeah.
while Bon Jovi was on stage.
Right.
So they worked their asses off.
See, so
Yeah.
then you get the guys at the arena that brought their girlfriends going, this opening band is awesome.
Right.
And then you got the other guys that are down at the bar, you know, getting
Right.
to see the great band too.
But
That's
yeah,
smart.
Johnny was at the studio. They came in, and he actually sang a lot of harmonies on those songs.
Really?
Yeah. And I erased everything except for one line.
And which
And
line is
that
it?
line is in I Remember You after the solo. There's one line harmony.
Really?
Johnny Solinger?
No, John Bon Jovi.
Oh, John Bon Jovi.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Well, I'm
And
gonna have to
oh,
I
listen
could
for
just
that.
see the band sitting in the hallway.
Uh-huh.
And he does the harmonies, and no, I'll go. So he walked out the door, and I just erased it.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't think Johnny knows that. Well, he does now.
Oh, that's interesting. Broken right here first. But
Nice.
Yeah, I remember you. He sings, I remember you. That's after the solo. And that second line has a harmony, a lower harmony.
And
That's
that's
the
him.
only line I kept.
Wow.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very cool.
That's why we're still friends with Skid Row.
That's very cool.